A black cat! He's gonna bring me bad luck! Shows what you know about luck.
Hey, just before we get to the video, I just want to say thank you for coming on, and please consider liking this video if you enjoy it. Comment below if, say, you find something wrong, or you just want to say good job. In any case, please consider subscribing to my channel. And if you're really dedicated as a fan, ring that bell. It'll notify you anytime new videos are up. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Hello and welcome to I Can't Believe It's Not the Mouse, the podcast all about animated features not made by Disney. I'm your host, Octaviano, and today I'm talking about a controversial animated feature, at least controversial in the field of animation. Now, I am a big fan of a lot of Disney. I'm a big fan of a lot of Pixar. And for the longest time, I did consider John Lasseter to be one of those inspiring figures in my life. Like, I thought, like, great storyteller, the fact that he was in charge of both Pixar and Disney was amazing. And, even though I knew, of course, he wasn't a perfect man, I thought, like, he's one of the great filmmakers of our time. I mean, Pixar really is something special. So it was heartbreaking to learn that this guy that I had so much respect in was actually a monster. He was, to put it bluntly, sexually harassing people who worked with him. For years they were covering it up, and even when it was revealed, they were still kind of hiding it. They were just saying, like, oh, he was touchy, he would hug people too much, or stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, be honest, that wouldn't be why he would get in trouble. Like, yeah, that might raise some flags, but, if it was just something as simple as that, I'm pretty sure most people would have been like, he's not a bad guy, he's not doing anything wrong. Or at the very least, be like, okay, maybe we should be more cautious around him, and, teach him why that's wrong. Obviously, he did much worse than what they were trying to say. And, yeah, to this day, it's always kind of hurt because it's like, this is a guy that, for me, was such a major influence in what I would do. Like, obviously, there's other people, and there always will be other artists to love, but, it still always hurts when one of the major influences turns out to be bad. When they kicked them out of Disney and Pixar, I fully understood, and I was like, yeah, this guy shouldn't come back to this field. Of course, there's always a chance of him changing, and if that's true, fine, but it's still much more of a process than just, a couple of years without doing a movie, and then he's back. Like, it takes some actual apologies, it takes some, it would be a lot of hard work, and, I haven't seen it, or at least haven't heard any of it come through with John Lasseter. When a new movie of his was announced, he was put in charge of Skydance Animation, and they were doing a movie called Luck, which is what I'm talking about today. There was not much confidence. It was still like, yeah, this is not a good idea, because if he's, still harassing people, this is not going to be good. And from my understanding, it was not a pleasant picture at Skydance. Apparently, people were leaving. Emma Thompson was at one point supposed to be in this movie, but she left because of that. And it's been said that while he was at meetings in this, he would constantly fall asleep. It's been said that they had to pass around notes saying, like, oh no, he's a different man now at Skydance, which is like, that's never a good sign. And yeah, it's just a whole bunch of things. So it's like, yeah, this is not a good idea to do this. But you know what? He did do some good movies while he was at Pixar. He was in charge of Disney for a bit, and, most of what he produced, was pretty good. So as much as I do not support what he's doing, the movie cannot turn out that bad, right? Luck has to be at least a fairly decent movie. I mean, obviously, there's going to be controversy no matter what. Obviously, I do not support what he does, but I do think that, okay, doing the whole ignore, separating artists from the art, and considering that there's other people that work on this, it's gotta be at least decent. It's gotta be fine. I'm not proud of it, but, I'm not gonna, use the actions of one man to disparage the action of a lot of people, because, of course, if you were to do that, then there'd be a whole bunch of movies that would just lose all quality. And not that that's necessarily something that I'm saying. Like, I'm not saying that, oh, we should ignore what one man does because, you know, other people work on the movie. Obviously not. I'm just saying, like, you know, it's nuanced, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, it's going to be complicated. I'm not going to be happy about, you know, the fact that this guy is looming large over a production that is, you know, whatever the quality of it is, you know, the fact that he's involved with it. But given his past work, I'd assume that maybe it's at least decent, an uncomfortable but decent watch. Then reviews started coming in for this movie, and they were trashing it, and I'm like, okay, not that they're wrong. At least I didn't feel like they were wrong, but I was just like, you know, maybe they're just, you know, going off of, you know, John Lasseter the man instead of the movie. And even though I understand that, and I will not disrespect that, because if, you know, if you feel like, you know, him being a monster is more than enough for you to disqualify this movie, I get it. But, you know, I do feel like, okay, is that really giving a fair shake to this movie? So, okay, let me go in with open mind. It's probably fine. It's probably just not a great movie, and him looming over it is what makes it worse. And yeah, no, this movie is that bad. Even if John Lasseter was not the monster that he is, even if this was just him leaving Pixar because, I don't know, maybe it was his time to go and he just felt like starting something new, going a different way from Disney, it's bad. It is a bad animated feature. It's one of the worst animated features I've seen in recent memory. It's one of the worst movies I've seen this year. That the Pinocchio movie, that bootleg one with Pauly Shore, is the only thing that's worse than that. Is less so because this is better written or anything. It's more so that, like, well, at least there's some effort into this, and at the very least, it's not that where it's just a cash grab made to trick parents into buying this stuff. Which, if that is the level of quality that you're working with, that you're only just better than the cash grab Walmart bargain bin movie, yeah, that is not a great sign. And it's disappointing because, again, you got, you know, someone who was talented on this, but it's like, yeah, regardless of John Lasseter was like, this movie would still be shit. I'm sorry. His actions, of course, make it even worse. I will admit that much. But even trying to separate the artist from the art, you made a bad movie. And yeah, this is far and away one of the worst things I've ever seen from a guy, you know, doing his post-studio follow-up. You know, Jeffrey Katzenberg, one of the other former heads of Disney Animation, you know, he was kicked out in the 90s for much, you know, something. He was still a pretty shitty person, but not in the same way as, you know, being a sexual harasser. But, you know, he was a pretty shitty person, and he started DreamWorks, company that has had great movies. And, you know, the first movie he did, the first movie that, you know, he put out from his new studio once he took over was Ants, which is a fairly good movie. It's not great. It's not anything too special. And admittedly, that also has its own problems given who's the lead in it. But it's at least a fairly decent movie. Even going beyond that, you know, whether it's The Prince of Egypt, you know, The Road to El Dorado, and of course eventually Shrek. Those are all, you know, solid movies. I do not have that same kind of hope for this studio. And it's not just because that John Lasseter is a horrible person. It's also just that, like, if this is what they shat out as their opening feature, there's not much hope. Because it's clear that John Lasseter is desperately clinging to his Pixar days with this. It really does feel like something that wants to be Pixar but can't be Pixar, and it's throwing in a bunch of stuff that is just Pixar generic. And look, let me just get the plot right away. In Luck, the story is that you have this girl who is now an adult. She used to be an orphan, and because she's an adult, she's moving out. She's gotten her own apartment. She's gotten a job, which, I mean, I don't know if orphanages actually do this kind of support, but if they do, I'm like, okay, well, You know, that's something I've never seen before. Neat, but not something that special. But, whatever. Her name is Sam, and she's just an unlucky person. And the way they go about this is really bad because it's like, it wants to be like a slapstick comedy, like something like, like a Hotel Transylvania or like a classic Goofy short or something. But since it's done in the Pixar way where it's grounded, real world like, down to earth, it feels very schmaltzy. I don't know if that's the right word, but that's kind of what came to mind when I saw it. And it just feels like no one is this unlucky. Like, is this going to be part of the plot where it's going to be revealed that some of the bad luck creatures are fucking with her? And no, it never does. But yeah, it's super unlucky to the point that it's like, I get it. She has bad luck. Can we just get to the story? Because this is just dragging on, and it's not even funny. It's not even cute. It's just annoying. And her main thing is like she's still friends with one of the other kids who's much younger, who, is an orphan, and she's, rooting for her to get adopted. Because she's like, oh, you get sad when you're alone, and you'd think this would be the emotion core, and it tries to be the emotional core of the movie about, finding your family, but it's never delved into it enough where it really matters. Like, there's no tear-jerking moment, there's no real emotion to it. It's just, oh, well, she's sad because she doesn't have a family. Okay, whatever. And then one day, after having a bad day at work and everything, she meets Bob, which is a black cat, voiced by Simon Pegg. He's a Scottish cat, which, according to Scottish lore, black cats are lucky. Didn't know that, but that's kind of neat to know. And Bob leaves behind a lucky penny, which makes Sam very lucky. But then she accidentally loses it, and it turns out that Bob didn't give it to her. He just accidentally dropped it. And this is where pretty much most of the story comes in, because she's trying to help him find the coin while he's trying to figure out how to get the coin and pretty much not lose his job, because him losing the coin will result in him being banished. Doesn't really make much sense, because as the movie goes on, they reveal that there are ways to find lucky coins. So it'd be like, why don't you just apologize to the people in charge? Like, hey, look, the collar that I was given, accidentally dropped it, and it's not my fault, so I shouldn't be banished. And even when that part of the plot is kind of resolved, that's kind of the gist of what he says. So it's like, well, why did we go on this whole adventure of you two trying to find a way to get this lucky coin, to replace the lucky coin you lost, or to just get the lucky coin back, or whatever? It's such a bizarre story choice that just drags on, and it's just boring. I mean, it's clearly like the whole Pixar thing of, oh, two characters are lost, but they're finding their way through the world, except only one of the characters is actually lost, which is the girl. The cat is, I mean, he's in his own world, and he's aware of everything. So it's just like, wait, shouldn't you be aware of like half of this stuff? And I know that they eventually reveal like, oh yeah, he's actually a bad luck cat because he's actually an English cat, which made me laugh my ass off. I'm not gonna lie, because and this is unintentionally, because Simon Pegg is doing like this thick Scottish accent, and then he completely drops it once he reveals that he's actually an English cat who's not lucky, because he's like, oh, I'm not a Scottish cat, I'm an English cat. It's like, granted, not like that, and much better. I'm sorry if I've offended anyone, but that's kind of where it's at, and I'm like, why? Like, this is so stupid. It's sad, because it's like, these are all beats that have been done in other movies, but better. And it's like, this is what you put out, but whatever. Like, so that's generally the story. And, even that kind of screws everything up, because it's like, okay, so he actually had a second lucky coin with him the entire time. It's just that he wasn't giving it away, because then he would have lost his good luck, which I'm like, why didn't you just put that in when you needed to be checking your coin? That way they wouldn't have noticed, especially considering that, once he finds out, like, oh yeah, they have a drone where they could locate the coin, he could have easily just been like, okay, here's my coin, and once I get the other one, I'll keep that one. Like, it makes no sense, and we're never given enough time to fully understand like why he chose this life, other than because good luck is good. We don't get a sense of like, oh, how was his life in the bad luck world, or whatever. Like I know they do try to do the whole like, oh, well, bad luck is actually good, because sometimes when you have bad luck, you look at the bright side of things, or you meet people that you normally wouldn't have if you only had good luck. Which I'm like, that's not a great message, but it's a fair message. But it never really comes across to the cat in any meaningful way. So it's like, why? And of course, because we can't just end it like that. Once the thing is solved, once they find their coin and all that BS, eventually Sam is like, okay, well, what if we turned off all the all the bad luck, so that we could only have good luck, just for a little bit, just so my friend could get adopted. You know where this is going. It turns out that turning off bad luck is bad, because it, destroys the machine, and now everything's all messed up. I mean, they say that everyone's going to have bad luck, but it seems more like everyone's just not going to have good or bad luck, which is just like, wait a second, then isn't that just regular life? I mean, sometimes good things happen to you, sometimes bad things happen to you, what? But then once they figure out a solution to it and find, because it's like, oh, there needs to be a good luck stone and a bad luck stone to balance everything out. Jane Fonda, who plays this good luck dragon, like the person who's in charge of like the good luck world, turns out to be like the twist Pixar villain, and it's just like, oh, I don't like bad luck, so I'm gonna just put in 2 good luck stones. That way, we have nothing but good luck. Which I'm like, didn't you just see what just happened? There was nothing but good luck, and then everything collapsed. Like, you're really just gonna risk that all again for this. And of course, it's even more of a waste of time, because the main character even tells her, like, within like 2 minutes, hey, this is wrong, don't do it. And she's like, oh, okay, yeah, you're right, it's wrong. Her friend gets adopted, but she visits her, and the cat lives with her now, and the end. And it's just like, this is such a stupid fucking movie. Just this whole journey of them trying to get the coin, which, the cat already had an extra coin, so that didn't make sense. And exploring this world, which they don't even properly explain, because it's like, okay, I get an idea of how good luck works, and but them setting up like, okay, in Scotland, black cats are good luck. You think like, okay, so there's going to be a multicultural look at luck, which might have been interesting, but no, they mostly just stick to Irish good luck and that little bit of Scottish good luck. So okay, bad luck world, barely even touched upon. It's just, oh well, there's like ugly creatures like trolls and roots, which I guess is like the root of all problems. I don't know, but I don't know. It's not a well-crafted world. It's not like Pixar, where it's like, oh yeah, once you get an idea of how like the brain works, it feels like that's exactly how it would be like. Or like with Monsters Inc., with the monster world, it feels like that's how it would be like. Of course, there's always different interpretations, but none of it feels like this is like a well thought out, fully fleshed out world that teaches you how luck would be like in this world. It just feels like a half-ass world, and that's not good, because it's not. It's just lazy storytelling, and it's not interesting. It's not fun. It's just bad. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I did, even though I mentioned that I haven't watched Illumination movies for who knows how long, to kill some time, a few weeks back, I did end up watching the Minions sequel, which, not a great movie. Same problems that I've always had with Illumination, but you know what? I would rather watch that again over this trash. It's that bad. I mean, the whole thing is just lazy, and like I said, full of the stuff that you wouldn't normally see in Pixar movies, to a point that it's just like, this is the guy that was in charge of Disney at one point? This is the guy that, crafted so many classics? Like, this movie's even advertising itself as from the visionary who brought you Toy Story and Cars. And look, I say this as a fan of Cars. I don't care, who says like, well, that should have been an indicator. Like, no, even if you don't like Cars, this is much worse than Cars. And I say that as someone who does like Cars, but trust me, at least with Cars, it's still a pretty fully realized world, even though people question certain things. But I feel like that's just stuff that's overboard. It's kind of like questioning why security cameras don't catch toys moving around in Toy Story. And the one time they did acknowledge that, it's just like, okay, but why is it only a toy monkey looking at it? Whatever. This, it's an embarrassment. I mean, even from the animation, it's not even great, because it looks like a standard Pixar movie, but without the detail of like the more recent ones. So it's still, I would say, like maybe a decade back in terms of quality. And even from that standard, it's not good, because at least with like, decade old Pixar movies, whether it's like, Cars 2 or, Up, Toy Story 3, they all had some really interesting stuff to go on. Like, the jungle was interesting, the cities were interesting to look at. Just all those little details. This doesn't have that. Like, it's good animation, I'll give you that much, but it's a prime example of something where it's like, you have good looking animation because of the tools that you have, but you didn't create anything interesting to look at with it. This is not a very cinematic looking movie, other than just the detail is there to make it look like better than, your average CG thing. But since there's nothing interesting done with it, it's like, yeah, I would, and granted I did watch it at home, that's how I would do it, regardless. Even if I did like it. I don't know, man. And even the characters don't really work too well, because, like, you have the Sam and Bob characters who are supposed to be like their typical Pixar opposites. She's the unlucky one, he's the lucky one. And it's like, look, for most of the time, they're just complaining to each other, mostly Bob complaining to her because he's like, oh, I don't like this, I just want to do this. And he's, constantly pushing people away, which you think is going to be like, okay, that's going to be like the main thing he learns, like to be more friendly to people, more accepting. But it's kind of glossed over, because it's just like, oh, at the end, he's now friends with the girl, and now he realizes that maybe he's been too harsh on the people that have been actually nice to him in his role, like his assistant and the unicorn and whatever. But, I could give a fuck. As a movie, even if John Lasseter didn't have the allegations on him, even if it wasn't John Lasseter, like, even if it was just some up-and-coming studio with some up-and-coming producer who made this, it would still be bad. It's not a matter of me just being like, oh, the sexual allegations is what makes this movie bad. I'm judging this by its own quality, and it is still bad. Like, the fact that, it has that looming over it is what makes it worse, and what makes it more uncomfortable to watch. But even removing that, it would just be one of the worst movies I've seen all year, and just one of the worst movies in recent years for animation. It's just a joke. Like, I don't really like being this negative, and I really was hoping going into it that there would be something nice about it, because I was kind of hoping that I could say, like, look, it is everything that's wrong with it, with John Lasseter is, of course, bad for this, and it does suck. But you know what? I was hoping that this would be another, fair competition for Disney. I was hoping it would at least be a decent enough movie that, not that I would say, like, oh, now we ignore what John Lasseter did, but to a point where I'm like, okay, well, now I can say, like, well, what he did was bad. At the very least, there's a new studio that works, and hopefully they kick him out, and can find their stride. And you know what? Fuck it. I hope they do kick him out. I do hope that it turns out that by kicking him out, their next feature is much better, which, hard to say considering that a lot of former Disney people are coming over to him. Like, Brad Bird is one of the people, coming over to him, which I'm like, I get it, you're friends with the guy, and, he stood by your side, but I don't know, man. Like, if you're looking at all the stuff he did and are still willing to, support him, even though he hasn't made an effort to actually change, you're kind of part of the problem. So that's really disappointing on your end, too. I mean, I hope that his movie is good in the sense that Brad Bird normally makes good movies, but just knowing that he's still supporting this guy is disappointing, and it doesn't give me too high of a hope for what he does. I mean, even if it turns out to be great, that thing will be looming with, again, the problem of having John Lasseter involved. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't want to be super negative. Because, going beyond the animation, like, the voice cast in this is fine for the most part. Luck, has celebrities like, you normally would expect with animated movies now. But they do use them well. Simon Pegg, well, I love Simon Pegg and other stuff, and he's not even bad in this. I mean, he is, he's fine. I mean, he works well in it. I mean, he's doing a good voice, and even when he drops the Scottish accent and just reverts to doing his own English accent voice, it's whatever. It's fine. But no, the characters suck. The story sucks. The visuals aren't interesting. The world is not an interesting, world. It doesn't build it the way that Pixar does, and does it right. Where, once you see the movie, it feels like that's one of the most accurate interpretations you've ever seen. It's just a giant mess, and as far as movies go, yeah, this is one of the worst I've ever done. This is probably the angriest I've ever been on any of these. I'm not entirely sure, but just thinking back, even compared to Pinocchio, which I think is still a much worse movie, Pinocchio, True Story, this is the one that left me more angry, and the more I think about it, the more it just disappoints me. Well, hopefully next week I do watch something that makes me happier. Yeah, all I can say is thank you for listening, and I hope to see you again next time with me hopefully being more positive, because, yeah, this was a very negative episode, and, yeah, look, I'm not even going to pretend on it. It was a bad movie.
I flushed it down the toilet.
You did what? You flushed my panty down the toilet? What did you do that for?
Thank you for coming on and listening to me today. If you enjoyed it, you can always subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can follow my podcast. It's on Podbean, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. And if you want to support me even more, there's always the option of Patreon. Patreon is a great way to support artists, and with that, you can always put in $1 or even more. It's all up to you, all just to help produce the show and other things I may do. Thank you again, and I hope to see you in the coming future.